What is up YouTube? This is Alex aka Foreign. Finally, the RX 580 aftermarket cards are out, and I managed to get a few prices on most of these cards, and I think we can actually talk about them now. I didn't include anything else besides the boost clocks and memory clocks in price this time, as it was very hard to find that information, and basically in the long run the only thing that will matter here is the cooler design and the boost clock here. Unlike Nvidia cards, AMD cards depend very much on the boost clock because they do not use GPU Boost 3.0, which is Nvidia's proprietary technology. AMD uses the standard boost clock, which it reaches and stays there if there is no thermal throttling. It is very easy to achieve thermal throttling on an AMD card, and the lower tier models here will probably thermal throttle much easier than the ones that cost $20 to $30 more. But today we will be talking about the Asus cards, Gigabyte, HIS, MSI, PowerColor, Sapphire, and the XFX cards. A total of 33 cards actually. Some of them are 4GB and some of them are 8GB. Most of them are 8GB in fact. To be honest, I'd actually recommend getting the 8GB cards as those seem to be better binned. Now here are all the cards in pictures. We will talk a bit about all of these, and I'll tell you which model is the higher end and which model is the lower end one, and which actually you should buy. Now let's start with Asus. Asus has a total of 5 graphics cards, 2 of which are 4GB cards. The 4GB cards use the dual fan design here, called the dual or dual OC cards. I couldn't actually find the prices for these because it's close to impossible to find an RX 580 4GB on sale, and most of these models mentioned here actually didn't have a price neither on Newegg nor Amazon. But this card, if you can actually find it and it'll be around $200, then I'd actually recommend it for 1080p gaming, because you will not use more than 4GB on 1080p, but you will definitely be using between 3 and 4, so that's why I would definitely not recommend getting a 1060 3GB card. All the 580 8GB cards from Asus use the Strix cooler design utilized on their 10 series Nvidia cards, and it's actually a very good cooler. The thing that I like the most about it is the fan connectivity on this side of the card. It has 2 fan connectors there, which means that you can take 2 of your case fans, plug it into your graphics card, and that means that those fans will ramp up as soon as your graphics card temperature gets higher. This is especially useful with open air cards, as these cards blow hot air into the case, heating up your other components, meaning that blowing that hot air out, for instance, with a fan connected to the graphics card would be very useful. But the Strix cards are unfortunately one of the most expensive ones on the market. If you really want a Strix card, and I myself would actually prefer the Strix if price was no issue, then wait for a sale, because this is far too expensive in my opinion. Gigabyte has shown pretty poor performance with the 400 card last generation. I guess they upped their game this time with the Aorus and Aorus Extreme here, which is their top tier model. The $250 price tag for the non-overclocked Aorus 580 is a steal in my opinion, because this cooler is massive. It cools the extremely hot Polaris 20 GPU very well, and even though it doesn't use the triple fan design utilized on the other cards, the dual fans here paired with the excessively massive heatsink do a great job at cooling the 580 GPU, which is, let's be honest, very hot. Now the cheaper Gigabyte gaming model is for those on a budget. It won't definitely cool as well as the Aorus cards, but for the MSRP of the RX 480 at $230, I think it's also a great buy. And it has been shown that this card is actually much better than the cooler on the 480, which has gotten some bad press at release. HIS is another well-respected brand that makes coolers specifically for AMD. They are actually known for very good heatsink designs if you can find these cards. Now I know they're not available in every country, and I'm not sure about ordering them to America or Europe for instance, but these coolers are actually very good. You can see the heat pipes here, and their boost clocks are also fairly high for the price. I would definitely recommend these if you can find them. And that may be a serious problem. MSI has gone all out on the RX 580 cards. They have 6 versions. The budget variant, so to say, is the Armor, and the 4 versions of the gaming card is also present. The good old black and red theme is as usual here with MSI. The boost clocks are fairly decent, but $270 for the Gaming X Plus is actually a fairly decent price compared to the other flagship RX 580s. If you can find a deal on this card, for instance $260 or $250, then I definitely recommend it if it actually suits your build and you like how it looks. I personally am kind of tired of the black and red theme and would have preferred pure black or black and white like the Armor uses, but the Armor's heatsink, as you can see, is much smaller than on the gaming card, so it will cool not as well. But for a cheaper price, if you're on a budget and you definitely can't find those extra $40, then the Armor card will do its job just fine. Now to PowerColor. They're also one of AMD's renowned partners, known for making very big cards. The RX 480 from PowerColor was actually one of the few triple fan design coolers which cooled the card very well for what it was. But now they have 3 cards. All 3 of them are dual fan designs. The PowerColor Redragon for the MSRP of the RX 580 is here. It uses a fairly tiny heatsink, but for the MSRP it'll definitely cool better than any card with a blower style, for instance. For $250 you're getting the PowerColor Red Devil, which utilizes a bit larger heatsink than the PowerColor Redragon, but not as large as their flagship Red Devil Golden sample for $270. Again, $270 seems to be the price for the most flagship RX 580s, and it's pretty expensive in my opinion. But the cooler here, if you look at it, only the heatsink is 2 slots, and if you add the fans and the shroud, that will add another half, basically another slot, I would say. The heatsink here is extremely massive, and it should cool the card very well. If you can find a deal on this one, I would definitely recommend getting this. Sapphire is known as AMD's best partner, making the best coolers, the flagship coolers for AMD cards. This generation they have 3 coolers to show off. The entry level, so to say, Sapphire Pulse for $240, the Sapphire Nitro Plus for $260, and the Sapphire Nitro Limited Edition for $290. This is one of the most expensive RX 580s, together with the Asus Strix here for $300, but I would say that the Sapphire Limited Edition is definitely the best RX 580 on the market right now because it uses an extremely well-designed heatsink. The backplate actually has holes in it for hot air to escape the card. The fins here, as you can see, are horizontal, not vertical like they usually are. That allows for air to flow out of the sides of the card, for instance out of the case and into the case, and that's why good airflow is very important for an open air cooler design in a case. But this card is actually the best, and if money of no concern and you really want an RX 580, then I'd recommend the limited edition here, if money is of no issue. XFX was the best RX 480 last generation, and this generation they basically only changed the shroud. As you can see here, they have 3 models and they only changed the shroud, leaving the well-received radiator under the shroud basically the same. The same goes for the PCB. If you're a fan of XFX, or if you find a good deal on these cards, then I'd recommend them, but for the price they are offering, I think it's a tad overpriced. $280 and $260 for the flagship and mid-tier model respectively is, in my opinion, kinda expensive. Now let's go back to the numbers and talk a little more about it. As you can see, the Asus flagship card is $300. That is extremely expensive in my opinion, and I would avoid getting any RX 580 for more than $270 unless you have money to burn basically. The Aorus cards, in my opinion, offer the best value for the cooling that they offer. For $250, the Gigabyte RX 580 Aorus card should in theory be the best value RX 580 in my opinion. The HIS cards are a bit rare. I don't know actually in what regions they're selling, probably Asia, but if you can order one of these, especially the Roaring, for maybe a bit cheaper than here if there's a sale or if somebody's selling one, then I definitely recommend it. From MSI, I would recommend avoiding the armor cards because those coolers have shown to be very poor in cooling. High TDP cards, your card will most likely throttle at some point or be very loud. The gaming cards are actually very good. If you can find the gaming non-X variant, plus that should be around $250, maybe $260, I'd recommend that over the gaming X Plus actually, because you're just paying for 10 more megahertz, which you probably won't feel in games, and if you're overclocking, then most probably you will reach 1450 on both of these cards anyway. PowerColor has a very good showing this generation as well. If you see a sale on the golden sample, I'd recommend getting that first of all and not getting the Red Devil or Red Dragon if there's no sale on them. Sapphire, AMD's top partner, and also they have the card with the highest boost clock, 1450 megahertz out of the box, but at a hefty price tag of $290. The cooler is very good on all of these, and I'd recommend waiting for a sale. XFX also very good showing, just as last generation. They still cool very well, but they didn't actually bring anything new to the table. Of all these cards, the best value for cooling is offered by the Gigabyte RX 580 card, Aorus Non-Extreme, for $250. If you're in the market for an RX 580, I'd actually recommend this card out of all the others. If money is of no issue for you, then I'd choose between the Asus RX 580 Strix top card or the Sapphire Nitro Limited Edition card, because those cards have the best coolers and the highest overclocks, and Asus card has the very cool feature of extra fan headers on the PCB. If you have any questions or suggestions, make sure to leave them in the comment section below. I'll reply to every single one of you. If you are in the market for an RX 580 and this video didn't help you very much, then make sure to leave a comment below as well and ask me the questions that you still have, and I'll try to help you. I will put an Amazon link in the description below, so if you're actually going to buy one of the cards mentioned here, make sure to use that link. That will help the channel grow and let me make more videos in the future. I thank you for your attention and hope to see you later.